Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are back in X-Plane 12, and we're going to be taking a look at the Skunkcrafts North American P-51D. For our flight today we are currently on the ground at Fishburn Aerodrome, and we're going to be taking the Mustang westbound for a spot of fun over the Lake District. As you can see, this video was recorded using a pretty heavily visually modified version of X-Plane 12. At the time of recording within X-Plane I was using Visual XP, Reshade, as well Orbex True Earth. But unfortunately this was all recorded using X-Plane 12.0, and of course since then we've seen the 12.1 update, which has essentially rendered Visual XP useless for the time being, and as well the most recent update of X-Plane, as of late January 2025, also seems to be having issues currently with Reshade. Nevertheless, this particular combination did make for a brilliant simming experience. The Skunkcrafts P-51 is really rather excellent, and as well it's nice to change things up and take a little bit of a break from Microsoft Flight Simulator. As always, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you would like to help support the channel further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron.
Okay, so today we find ourselves back in X-Plane 12. I've been having an awful lot of fun with the sim recently. As you can see, I think I've got things looking rather beautiful now. I came across the Skunkcrafts P-51D. I was very keen to take a look at the aircraft, so we're going to do exactly that. As discussed, taking the Mustang over towards the Lake District. We'll have some fun over there before returning back to Fishburn later on today. As you can see, we've just strapped ourselves into the aircraft, so running through the pre-start checks. The part brake is set. Flaps are selected up, though currently sitting in the down position, just waiting there to get some hydraulic pressure into the system. For the carb ram air, we'll set that through to ram. For the carb heat, we'll leave that in the normal position. Supercharger is set through to auto, that is guarded. For the fuel levels, just shy of 50 US gallons there on the left, about 60 US gallons there on the right, and we've got about 10 gallons there in the fuselage tank. That's perfect for us, that's giving us about 2 hours worth of endurance, and we're going to be in the air for about an hour, so arriving back into Fishburn later with about an hour's extra worth of fuel. For the elevator trim, with the fuselage tank essentially empty, we'll leave that in the neutral position. The checklist calls for 6 degrees out to the right there on the rudder trim, but personal preference, I'm going to leave that as well in the neutral position. Battery master can go on. Really nice sounds on the aircraft, you'll notice those throughout the flight. Take the generator switch on there as well. The oil cooler radiator, we'll guard that up, set that through to automatic, you can hear that running in at the moment. And same as well there for the coolant radiator. For the start checks, the throttle will crack 1 inch. Mixture should stay in the cut-off position, but a bit of a concession here for the sim, we're going to come straight through to auto rich. Prop lever is set fully forward, fuel selector will come onto the left-hand main. The fuel shut-off will take on. Fuel booster is selected on. We do have a good fuel pressure, we'll prime the engine here for around 4 seconds. And uncaging the starter, we'll set the mags through to both, just making sure the prop area is clear. Clear on the left, clear prop, and clear on the right. And we'll fire up that Merlin. So really nice effects there, some of those courtesy of head shake. Great sounds as well. And that Merlin as it roars into life, really having a sense of power to it, very nice overall. So just adjusting the throttle here to maintain 1000 RPM, we'll guard up the starter. Get rid of the fuel boost, and all pressures come up, all temperature there, we're just waiting for that to come through 40 degrees, currently sitting at around 10-15 degrees. For the warm-up, we'll leave the engine idling, again around 1000 RPM, if we want we can come up through to 1300. Again waiting on that all temp to come through 40 degrees Celsius ahead of the takeoff. In the meantime, for the altimeter, we'll set the QNH, aerodrome elevation is 370 feet. So we've got 370 sets. For the directional gyro, on the compass there showing a heading of about 170. So we'll set that. We'll set it again once we get out at the runway just to refine things ahead of the takeoff. And showing about 171 on the compass.
Copy, clear to land runway 02, surface wind 020 degrees 10.
So the directional gyro is set. In terms of the taxi, as you can see, looking at the windsock, the wind is currently out from the west, so we're going to be taking the westerly runway. So just taxiing straight ahead, it'll be left, backtracking the runway. We'll carry out our run up en route, and I'll meet you down at the threshold for runway 26. Okay, so we are now lined up here on runway 26, again having carried out the run up en route. For the full takeoff checks, the flight controls are unlocked. We've got full left and full right there on the ailerons. Full up and full down there on the elevator, full left and full right there on the rudder. For the prop, once again that is set through to high RPM. For the flaps, it is a pretty short runway here at Fishburn, especially for the Mustang, so we'll go through to 20 degrees. And the flaps are visually checked. Gun sight obviously we can leave off. We'll take the position lights on. We'll leave the landing light off here as well. We'll close up the canopy. That is closed and locked. We'll take the fuel boost pump on. For the takeoff itself, again a very short takeoff run available here at Fishburn, so we're going to use max power, that's 61 inches on manifold pressure. Part brake can come off. Initially just slightly back on the stick, a little bit of right aileron here as well. And we're going to come up on the throttle fairly expeditiously, again just to minimise that ground roll. So tail coming up. There's 61 inches. Centering up the stick, just a little bit of aft pressure. And up to 100 miles an hour, the Mustang gliding her way up into the air. Anyway, we do a positive climb, tap the brakes, bring up the gear. And we are now up through 300 feet, so we'll start retracting the flaps.
Golf Echo November, report passing a beam the power station, crossing join at 02, squawk 3763.
And we'll come back now towards climb power. So we're looking for 46 inches, 2700 RPM. So flaps are selected up. Initial heading we're looking at 254, so pretty much a straight out departure here from Fishburn. Here's our 46 inches, we'll come back down to 2700.
Golf Oscar Tango descent as required, join left base and report finally number 2 following traffic late left base.
And power is set. Just coming up through 2,000 feet. We'll level off around 2.5. It's a fairly hazy day here at the moment. Should still have pretty decent visibility though over at the Lake District. Okay, it's 2,500 feet. So levelling off, just using a little bit of left rudder trim here as well. And we'll come back now towards our cruise power setting, so we're looking at 35 inches on the manifold pressure.
Strong approach, good afternoon, Golf Mike India, Sarah Juliet.
And we'll go with around 2,400 RPM. Once we've got our power set, we'll get the aircraft trimmed out. So a little bit more elevated trim. And again, just confirming we do have gear up, lights out, flaps are up. Just slightly out to the right here on the heading currently, so we'll just adjust back to the left. Again, 254 on the heading. First leg's going to be 6 minutes out towards the Salset Reservoir. We've got about another 3 minutes here to go now, so it's going to be time 1-6. And we should be passing just out to the right of the town of Bishop Auckland, which we've got just down there on the left of the aircraft, so looking good in terms of our tracking currently. Still in a shallow climb here at the moment, the Mustang really wanting to fly. So a little bit more trim. Take the boost pump off. Carb air can go back through to unfiltered. So probably a little bit tricky for you to make out at the moment, but we've got the high terrain there off the nose. We're expecting to come just overhead the top of the ridge line that's just in front of the aircraft. So again, gross aero check looking pretty good here in terms of the tracking. And as discussed, Bishop Auckland just down there on our left. About another 2 minutes to run now towards the reservoir. We're going to be tracking overhead the Selset Reservoir. We'll then be on towards the town of Penrith. Penrith is going to be our insertion point onto the Lake District.
Juliet with a basic service QH1021, report passing overhead.
Passing overhead, 1021, switches.
Golf Foxtrot Mike, basic service, cars and Cochrane active and traffic you might see the Cessna 150 routing from Cleveland to the overhead at 2006. Yeah, Golf Foxtrot Mike, basic, all the active you've got, right, and it's, you might see a Cessna 150 routing Cleveland towards the overhead at 2006.
Okay, so we are just approaching Penrith, right on time. We've got the town there at star 11 o'clock. And just adjusting the heading here to come right overhead, maintaining 3,000 foot here at the moment. Rest assured we are going to be getting much lower here as we come in towards the Lake District. We've got the first of our lakes there at star 10 o'clock. So we've got the M6 motorway there, just passing out towards the west of the town. And a quick check of our fuel state before we enter the Lake District. So we've got about 35 US gallons there on the left, about 50 US gallons there on the right, and en route as well we just burned down that last 10 gallons in the fuselage tank. It's about 85 gallons, it's about an hour and a half's worth of endurance. So we've got about 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe to play here in the Lake District, and then we'll start thinking about heading back towards Fishburn. It's only around 15 minutes to get home. Unfortunately the visibility here not particularly stellar either, but once we get low level some of that haze should clear out a little bit. Again though, really enjoying the aircraft. The Skunkcrafts P-51 is an absolute tour de force in terms of ambience and immersion. The aircraft just feels the part. Really goes to show what can be done in the sim with the Warbird. It's a shame there aren't more high quality add-ons available currently for X-Plane 12. There is a fairly limited selection at the moment, particularly outside of the airliners. Anyway, first lake off the nose is Ullswater. Apologies along the way if I get any of the pronunciations wrong, try my best. So we'll follow this lake out towards the southwest initially. The little headland there that you can see off the nose just through the gun sights. We've got Leeming House, we'll try and spot that on the way past. And just putting the aircraft into a bit of a shallow dive, just coming down through 2,000 feet, about 1,000 foot per minute there on the rate of descent. So picking up some speed, we're now doing about 300 miles an hour. We've got the A592 just running along the northern shore here of the lake. It's just down on the right hand side of the aircraft. And the lake itself, a little bit gloomy again, but overall looking pretty resplendent. I just think Orbex and X-Plane 12 looks so much more photorealistic than Microsoft Flight Simulator. I know that comment will upset quite a few people. Microsoft Flight Simulator is undoubtedly a more beautiful sim. Here's the road again, just following the shores of the lake. But it has to be said, X-Plane 12 with an awful lot of tweaking, I will say, and a few payware mods here as well. I think it does look a little bit more photorealistic overall. Particularly, as I mentioned in a previous video, the tree placement. Again, we are using payware scenery, so expected that that's going to be more accurate, but the more accurate tree placement certainly makes the world look that much more realistic. Trees in Microsoft Flight Simulator tend to muddy the world a little bit. There's too many of them around, they cover up a lot of the scenery, and they're not modelled particularly nicely as well, although that should hopefully improve quite a bit with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So just coming over to the southern shore now of the lake, we've got Glen Ridding, and apparently as well there's a little inn actually named the Inn on the Lake. So we'll hang our right, we'll come out to the west, and we'll cut over the hills. We'll head towards Ambleside. That's just located on the shores of Lake Windermere, which is probably the lake most of you are familiar with of any in the Lake District. No easy way around the terrain here. We'll just cut out to our 1 o'clock. That looks to be the lowest piece of terrain in terms of clearance. And in terms of speed, approaching 200 miles an hour. We'll just come back up on the power here, just towards climb power, just to make sure we do clear the hills. So 2700 RPM and 46 inches. Absolutely loving the aircraft. Very beautiful experience within the sim. I do wish we had a few more quality Warbirds in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's really only Flying Iron that are leading the way there at the moment. Unfortunately, no one else really comes close. Okay, reducing power again, back down towards 35 inches. We don't want to drink our way through too much of that fuel. We'll try and maximise our time here in the area.
There's Golf Bravo, Papa Alpha Yankee, Squawk 7000, and 3 call Whitewall, and 122.6.
So heading back towards the south now, and again that'll take us in towards Ambleside. If I remember correctly, there's a little Roman fort just on the shores of Lake Windermere. We'll try and spot that, or at least the location of an old fort.
Golf Bravo Tango Delta Echo Liverpool, good morning, Port Manchester.
So we've got the A591 now, just below the aircraft. And the little lake off the nose, I'm not entirely sure of the name of the lake itself, but only we've got Wordsworth out to the north and the Rydal Bridge just on the eastern shore. You can actually just about make out the bridge. A couple of hills in front of the aircraft and then Lake Windermere just off our 11 o'clock. Another quick check on the fuel, nothing burned down there on the left, expecting to see that about 45 gallons now on the right. Again, planning to land back into Fishburn with around an hour's worth of fuel, so being conservative about 60 US gallons. But we can afford to burn a little bit more than that. Obviously we need to land back with at least 30 minutes in reserve, but we'll probably aim for 45 since we're having a bit of fun.
Copy from Lima, traffic at south and west 5 miles, traffic northeast is a P-51D, altitude 2,500 feet, micro consecutive. Copy from Lima, traffic southwest 5 miles, tracking east of the P-51D, altitude 2,500 feet, micro consecutive. Copy Whiskey, Alpha Lima, Squawk 7000, and very cool farm roll, westbound 125, 250.
So Windermere is just down at our 10 o'clock. We're not going to fly the entire length here of the lake. Instead we'll follow the A591, so we'll come back out to the north. It's a little bit of a shame it's a gloomier day, making spotting some of the scenery a little bit harder, but then again it does really demonstrate just how photorealistic X-Plane 12 can look. So in terms of a heading, we want a heading of about 340.
Golf Whiskey Romeo, traffic right, 2 o'clock, 3 miles, traffic southeast, no height or tide, further traffic 12 o'clock, left to right, 4 miles, no height or tide.
That's looking about right. Just looking at the train out to the 1 o'clock position there, we've got that cut back towards Ullswater. So we want to take the valley out to our 11 o'clock. That's going to have us passing over another lake, which again unfortunately not named here on the charts. Speed 200 miles an hour, 2,500 feet. And approaching 40 US gallons now here on the right tank. We'll leave that burning down until we're down to around 30 and then we'll switch over again. You'll notice here as well that my lighting is adapting as we look in and out of the cockpit. One of the real major issues with X-Plane 12 is the lighting in the cockpit really far too dark. Using a little bit of reshade here and using, I believe the particular reshade preset in question is Arcane Bloom. That does wonders for the sim. As you can see, if we actually look into the cockpit, things brighten up. And essentially, as we look outside again, things auto-adjust. A little bit like the human eye. We'll definitely be taking another look at that in a future video. I'll give you another rundown on how I currently have my X-Plane settings configured. But today, just focusing on the Skunkcrafts P-51, and as you can tell, I'm pretty enamoured with the aircraft overall. It's a really beautiful effort in the sim. Stunning aircraft, really great fun to fly as well. The flight model feels top-notch, sounds are top-notch, and I think that's really what you need for an immersive experience in the sim. Excellent sounds, Visuals of course help, the visuals are decent, not quite up to Microsoft Flight Simulator standards obviously. The flight model, again, really nice. I would say pretty much on a par with the DCS Mustang. Certainly better than any of the Warbirds that we have in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The aircraft just feels really sharp on the controls. It's one of those add-ons where you really almost can feel the aircraft cutting through the air as you fly, which is pretty rare. Only in DCS really have I come across that previously. Systems as well, pretty decent overall. They're not entirely realistic. For example, you can start the engine without really having to worry too much about priming or the correct settings. But the systems do still feel convincing, which is really for me the main thing. For example, the engine doesn't catch immediately. There is that nice little period in between. And it seems as though basic failures are modelled. That is an option available via the tablet. So the Skunkcrafts P-51 really is the full package. There's not really a whole lot of negativity that I can offer towards the aircraft. And that's great. I don't like to deride any products unless I need to. But certainly if you were considering picking up the aircraft, I can't recommend the Skunkcrafts P-51D Mustang highly enough. So rolling inverted. Again, the aircraft just feels so much the part on the flight controls. The flight controls don't feel overly heavy, they don't feel overly light. And there is a noticeable difference here as well as we adjust the speed. Unfortunately, the artificial horizon there didn't like that. One issue in the aircraft, you can't cage that up. I'm not quite sure why that's not modelled. Anyway, good. Again, on the temperatures and pressures, fuel looks good. Definitely thinking about heading home now. So pushing 270, 280 miles an hour. Just approaching the first lake, we've got Keswick, more or less off the 12 o'clock position. A short run then up towards Bathenswaite Lake. But again, we're going to be hanging right and taking that A56 back towards Penrith.
White Waltham to the 2K via overhead Farnborough and Biggin Hill. Currently at Woodley at 1,400 feet of 1022. Request overhead transit and space service.
So we've got Keswick off the nose, going through the hills again out towards our 1 o'clock, and again just following that road, saying goodbye to the Lake District, saying goodbye to the last of our lakes.
Golf November Uniform QNH to correct basic service call 0430.
So overall the visibility there didn't hamper us too much, still able to see plenty of the sights en route. And I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but I'm just blown away with how X-Plane 12 can look. It is worth noting though that again this did require a number of payware mods, quite a bit of tweaking, and the sim is also quite sensitive to weather and daylight conditions. The sim can still look pretty awful under the wrong weather conditions, under the wrong lighting conditions. So if you're a daytime flyer, you'll be pretty well catered for. Same for nighttime actually, it's really just the earlier morning, later evening conditions where the lighting can look a little bit too sharp or a little bit too dull. And with the weather as well, no cloud coverage tends to rather wash out the sim. Too much cloud coverage does tend rather to darken things up too much. But again, with reshade, that's taking care of most of the issues. It'd be really nice to see Laminar get some of these things sorted themselves. Guess we'll just have to wait a little bit longer on that. So again, just monitoring the fuel quite regularly now as we are getting close to our bingo fuel essentially. 30 US gallons now on the left, down on the right. We'll switch back over to the left-hand main tank. As discussed, that's about an hour's worth of fuel now, so 50 minutes to get home. Going to have us arriving back with about 45 minutes in reserve. That gives us a few options if we need to make a go around or perhaps divert somewhere else, but not anticipating that we're going to need to do that here today. So the A56, just down on the right-hand side of the aircraft. And Penrith pretty much directly off the nose. We'll just put ourselves into a little bit of a cruise climb. Come back up to 2500 RPM and around 40 inches on the manifold pressure. We need to get ourselves up to around 3,500 feet here to clear the hills as we head home. But again, no rush to do that. so the cruise climb should work for us, and again that's going to help us save a little bit of fuel en route as well. This video seems to have unintentionally become somewhat of a lesson here in fuel management. That wasn't the intention, but it's an interesting point to note, I think, as well. So Penrith, just off the nose, we'll head over the town. Next waypoint after that is going to be the Derwent Reservoir, and from Penrith we're going to be taking up a heading of 066. That's our longest leg on the flight plan today. It's going to be about 7 minutes, so once we're overhead the town we're looking at a time of around 4:08 to overhead the reservoir. From there, tracking on to Durham, we'll take a brief look at Durham Cathedral, and then homewards bound towards Fishburn, more than likely back onto runway 26.
From Squawk 0460, Harvey Koenig from 022, base 7. We think that's a Robin who's heading out. We're visual with him on the right hand side. Squawking 0460, Golf on Tango 130.
Golf Lima Delta report to Farmer Radar 123.1225.
Farmer Radar 123.225,
Farmer 18Z transit is approved, remaining east. There will be departing aircraft.
Okay, so we've just come overhead the Derwent Reservoir. We've now got the town of Lanchester just down at our 10 o'clock. We've got a VRP there as well, the antenna, just out towards the east of the town. Little wind farm there as well, so we know again we're tracking quite nicely in terms of our routing. Durham should be more or less just off the nose. We've just come slightly right here on the heading. Again, the visibility not really helping in terms of navigation today, but it's adding to the challenge, which is really nice and very realistic. You don't get too many days of amazing flying weather in the UK. So heading's 112. I think I can just about start to make out the Durham Cathedral now. Once we're over at Durham, we're looking for a heading of 142 back towards Fishburn. It's only going to be 2 minutes to return home. And fuel-wise now, about 15 gallons there on the left, and about 35 there on the right. About 50 gallons in total, about 50 minutes. So looking pretty perfect in terms of our flight planning to arrive back with around 45 minutes of fuel. We might just eat through a little bit more of that in our flyby of the field, but that's well worth it for those external sounds. There's Durham.
India Juliet, request frequency change to Red Hill on 119.6.
Again, we'll take at least one quick look at the cathedral. Just spotting that out at our 10 o'clock.
131 held out, there's overhead crosswind descending for downwind.
November 1 Charlie Delta report established downwind.
Squawk up Mama, the QFA check please.
And again, after that, back onto heading of 142. Back towards the M1. The motorway, that is.
Golf Yankee Alpha, traffic is assessed, just departed eastbound with that one inside. Just leave the takeoff to the north, crossing 02350 degrees to Alpha.
There's the cathedral, just off to the left of the coaming. Really beautiful part of the world, Durham.
November 1 Charlie Delta, continue approaches helicopter crossing.
So we'll say goodbye to that, and back onto heading of 142. Make a little bit of a break out to the right. And just using the directional gyro, as you can see the compass there, pretty useless for this sort of manoeuvring. We've just about got our attitude indicator back there as well now. Just making sure that DG is still giving us relevant information, still showing 142 there on the compass. Just come back towards 30 inches now, slowly start descending. As we approach the field, we're still up at 3,000 feet. So again, here's the M1, just down on the left of the aircraft. A little bit of a shift there in the lighting, which is still an issue with X-Plane, unfortunately. Basically, as soon as the motorway straightens up, which basically is the section just off the nose, we'll find Fishburn just out to the east. We've also got a small wind farm there between us and the field. There's the wind farm. So we'll just parallel the motorway, keeping a really good eye out for the field. Obviously, with it being a grass runway, not necessarily the easiest to spot.
November 1 Charlie Delta, clear to land runway 20, surface wind 360 degrees 10 knots.
Here's the straightest section of the motorway that we talked about.
Golf Charlie Bravo, you can descend to circuit height. Report established initially left base on 02.
And Fishburn should be just off the left wing, and visual now with the field. Just out of our 10 o'clock high. Just now the runway coming up abeam the top there of the windshield pillar. So we'll hold 30 inches for now, continue here in the descent, pick up a little bit of speed, and overfly runway 26. And as usual, we'll brake back off to the left, back in for a full stop landing. We'll get most of our downwind checks out of the way in the meantime, so brakes are checked and off, undercarriage will hold, mixture is set through to auto rich, boost pump is on for the fuel, we're still on the fullest tank. Landing light will leave off, flight instruments are checked, harness is secure. Just keeping an eye here on the runway. Okay, back up to 35 inches. And just pulling a little bit of G here to get around the corner. Power lines there just down below the aircraft. We're going to be well clear of those. So there's runway 26, rolling in. Again, we'll make a low-level high-speed pass, brake off to the left.
Helicopter Golf Yankee Alpha, traffic is a Cherokee joining inbound from the northwest and basic service.
Hopefully give the people down there on the ground something to really rather enjoy. So paralleling the runway, and back up into the air, braking off to the left. Okay, so just continuing in the left bank, again 15 on the left, 30 now on the right, so 45 minutes, exactly what we wanted here for the landing. Start reducing power, let that speed roll off.
Sure, good afternoon, this is Golf Bravo Bravo, Yankee Bravo.
And coming back in on a pretty wide left-hand downwind. Speed back through 200 miles an hour now. Nicely established here on a reciprocal heading.
Charlie Bravo, left base 0231.
As we reduce that speed, needing a lot of elevator trim. I find with the aircraft you pretty much need full aft elevator trim here once the speed comes back. Okay, we'll take the gear down.
Golf Charlie Bravo, report final number 1.
Final number 1, Charlie Bravo.
Code 8 downwind, contact 1 ahead.
We do have 3 greens, although you can't really tell here in the sim. We'll start taking some flap here as well, just through to flaps 20 initially. And we'll roll in now onto base. We'll just come back up to 2500 RPM. Just to give us a little bit more range here on the throttle. Keeping the speed for now just above 100 miles an hour. And we can more or less just follow this road around on base. Nice little feature for us. So speed's looking good. All clear out on final. We're a little bit low, so we'll just hold on the flaps.
Golf Zulu Echo, to take up 1 right hand over to your present position.
Okay, so Echo, 1 orbit.
And we'll come through now to landing flap, which I believe is flaps 50. I find it pays to just stay a little bit high here in the Mustang. So pitch is full fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Landing clearance not required, the runway is clear. Again, full aft elevator trim. And as I say, we're going to stay just a little bit high, a little bit fast. That helps a little bit with the landing, but we can't take too much here with the short runway at Fishburn. So holding the aircraft off, closing the throttle. Coming down with a little bit of a bump there, but I think that's somewhat needs must. Again, we could probably have held a little bit more power, but we are somewhat limited with runway length. I think as well we probably just flared the P-51 a little bit early. Anyway, pretty aggressively onto the brakes. Again, not much runway to play with. Although just about bringing ourselves to a stop. And we can vacate off to the right, back in towards the parking area. So gentle here through the turns, we'll go and get ourselves parked up once again outside the aviator. We'll open up the canopy. We can retract the flaps here as well. Ideally here as well we'd want to set the carburetor air back to filtered, but a little bit busy here at the moment, hands are rather full with the aircraft, so we'll hold off on doing that.
Golf River 0PA28 on line 5 with India 1021, 3POB, request taxi local to the west.
Just getting the P-51 straightened up again. Onto the brakes. Our brake is set, we'll leave the engine idling at 1000 RPM. Fuel boost pump can go off, we'll just work our way around the cockpit. Again, we can leave the ram air for now, flaps are up. Just out of interest in terms of our fuel state then, we've got 15 gallons there on the left and 25 on the right. So about 40 gallons, 40 minutes overall, which again with that flyby, putting the additional time in there, pretty good in terms of fuel planning and above our half an hour that we really needed. Anyway, we'll cut the engine, so bringing the mixture here back to the idle cut-off position. Again, nice effects, nice sounds, nice reasonable rundown, a little bit of a twitch there from the prop, very nicely done overall. We'll close the throttle, mags can come off, and you can hear there once again the oil cooler shutter presumably closing up. We'll just set both of those back through to manual, and we'll set that through to closed for the time being.
Golf Romeo Zulu, Squawk 3763, taxi Bravo 1402.
So just waiting on that to run in. Mags are off. Take the fuel shut off back through to the off position. Lock up the controls. Generator can come off. And same there as well for the master battery. Overall, really cracking flight in the sim. Really enjoyed that, and I hope you did as well.
So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our outing in the Skunkcrafts P-51D, and as well another look at X-Plane 12. X-Plane certainly has some distinct advantages over Microsoft Flight Simulator, of course the main one being the flight modelling. But so far as the visuals go, to my mind Laminar Sim does still require quite a bit of tweaking, quite a bit of modding to get the visuals up to an acceptable modern standard. As well, with X-Plane 12 still being constantly updated at the moment, you can end up chasing your tail in terms of these modifications. With regards to exactly which visual mods we used during the recording of this video, whilst I'm sure that some of you would be after a list of said modifications, once more, unfortunately X-Plane 12.1, and particularly the most recent update of X-Plane 12, has rendered all of these particular modifications currently unserviceable. I'll certainly keep playing around with the sim though, and once things have settled down a little bit more in terms of development, we'll more than likely revisit the subject. Again, I do think it's nice to change things up a little bit from time to time, and once more, the excellent Skunkcrafts P-51D made for a really enjoyable outing. Once again, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please do consider subscribing as well. And once more, if you would like to help support my content further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron. Links to both of those are down in the video description below. A very big thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. It is very much appreciated. And to all of you, I hope you are having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.